All right, this week, the CDC released some results from its youth risk behavior survey. This is something that they do every couple of years, and basically they poll young people on questions about different topics like sexual activity, substance use, mental health, and the like. Well, according to this survey, nearly a quarter of high school students ages 14 to 18, nearly a quarter of them now identify as one of the letters in the ever-expanding alphabet of LGBTQIA+, whatever we have in there. 25% of our high schoolers identify with some aspect of this. This is like double what it was in 2015. But my question is, how accurate are these numbers? Who are they surveying? And what message is the CDC attempting to convey through all of this? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Irene Ericksen, the Senior Research Analyst at the Institute for Research and Evaluation. She served for 3 years on a national panel of consultants to the CDC-supported Community Preventive Services Task Force and their meta-analysis study on sex education effectiveness. And in fact, she was the secondary author of that published report. Irene, welcome to Washington Watch. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Just a minor correction. I was one of many secondary authors, so I don't want to take more claim than or credit than is due. Thank you.
Point well taken. Thank you for that. All right. Well, let's get into the details of this this report. Let's just out of the gate. What's your basic take on this latest CDC report?
Okay. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey is a survey that's been done nationally for decades, and it's a credible survey. It's something that is administered directly to high school students. They respond anonymously, and so I'm not inclined to question, the validity of the numbers, and I think the question is maybe what is behind these numbers, or what is causing students to respond this way. And the change, the dramatic change that you described. The first thing I think that's important to note is that for some reason that year, the survey apparently did not ask about transgender identity. So we don't know in that 24% what portion would be represented by a transgender, kids that are identifying as transgender. The percent that identifies gay or lesbian is actually only 3%. And so that gives you a little bit different. There are other categories, one of which is other, so unspecified. Another one is questioning, or they question their sexual identity. Another category is bisexual, meaning they would consider themselves both heterosexual and homosexual in their sexual attraction. So I think fleshing out those numbers is a little bit helpful. Because at first glance, it makes it look maybe a little more dramatic than it is.
It's extremely dramatic. And I guess I would disagree with you on that. I do question these numbers. I mean, in the first place, you've got a number of Christian and private schools that probably opted out of this thing. You have a number of students that probably felt as though their parents should best handle some of these questions. And I think no doubt some of this would skew some of the data coming out of the gate. But then you look even at other countries. The UK, for example, they only have, I think it's like 8% of their high schoolers claim to be involved in one of these, identify as one of these numbers. And yet massively different numbers here in the United States that raises all sorts of question marks with me. And you're saying it doesn't raise any question marks for you?
Oh, no. No, I think you misunderstood me. This is very different than it was 6 years ago, as you noted. And that is important and dramatic and needs to be understood. I think that what's accounting for the biggest change is in the categories of bisexuality and other and questioning. And those are, large numbers added up. And so I think we do need to ask why is this shifting so dramatically in such a short time? So I'm in agreement with you there, 100%.
Well, I also question this because this is let's just keep in perspective, this is coming from the same CDC that provided all sorts of misinformation during the pandemic. And that was their area to rely upon science and protect the American people. And they provided all sorts of information that was misleading at best and certainly not accurate. And of course, now we're learning more and more of that even in that instance, it was politically driven rather than scientifically driven. And I wonder if there is some sort of additional motive other than science in this research that they're trying. Are they trying to sway? I guess is what I'm going to. Are they trying to sway public opinion and to make this look as though it is much more embraced than what it actually is? Or am I missing the boat here?
I can't really respond to the CDC's motives in this. I do see a trend in the social science research generally that it has become highly politicized. So I would understand your raising those questions. I think that the questions that are, that need to be looked at are, the fact that the gay or lesbian category hasn't changed that much, but the other categories have. And we see this, and you mentioned internationally, like in England. In England, the number of transgender teenagers has skyrocketed in the last 10 years. And that's mostly because of a dramatic rise in the number of teenage girls who say they are identifying as transgender. So there are other indicators that this category, this LGBT category, has shifted dramatically in recent years. And some people are arguing that there is a social factor going on here, a cultural factor, the internet, the messages that kids are getting about sexuality and about sexual identity. And I think there's some good evidence for that. So that's kind of how I'm seeing these numbers, is that there is a change that has happened that is corroborated by other sources other than the CDC. They see it in England, in Sweden, and even a Gallup poll that was taken recently showed a 900% increase in the number of kids or people identifying as transgender in that same time period. So I think what I am interested in as a social scientist is what is accounting for this dramatic change.
Well, I think there are several factors that kind of stare us in the face with this. There is an outright indoctrination attempt of this type of belief system to our children. I mean, we're watching it from as young as Disney, children all the way up. There's an indoctrination. There's social contagion, as you mentioned, that's taking place. There is outright attempts to confuse children of their gender and all these different things. And, and there may be even a desire to, you have special rights in this country these days if you are some oppressed class. And so even possibly the attempt to create a minority sex class to then be oppressed and get special rights. Who knows what's going on? But there are certainly attempts to indoctrinate and to confuse children. And I believe all of this is extremely alarming. I wish we had more time, Irene. I do have another guest that's waiting, so let me thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate you so much joining us on Washington Watch this evening.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.